If you dig deep enough, it's never hard to find the relevance of ancient Torah texts to the world in which we live. Take this week's concern in providing justice. I'm not making this up. Protection for those who have committed involuntary manslaughter. The Torah sketches how in cases of accidental killing, the guilty party may escape vengeful, aggrieved people shouting for harm to be done to them. How? If you read Numbers 30, the one who committed that manslaughter can go to one of 6 cities of asylum, arei miklat, to find safety from those seeking to hurt them. The notion of the cities of asylum in this week's double portion arose out of the need to end the breakdown of society by taking the process of law out of the hands of vigilantes, out of the hands of private individuals. It was also meant to rehabilitate the sin that had been committed. These asylum cities in the Torah were not prison cities. They were not penal colonies. Quite the opposite. And remember, they were not for innocent women and children fleeing violence and rape, or kids of color smoking weed and going to prison, as was the case in California. These were cities of refuge for people who had committed involuntary manslaughter. And the Torah has the audacity of compassion to create entire cities of rebirth, places where a person tormented by the shame and guilt of having accidentally taken a life would be able to surmount the anguish and rebuild a creative human existence away from angry crowds or feuding families. Everyone at Temple tonight has hopefully been spared that kind of shame and guilt or being targeted by an angry crowd. But we all face anguish of different kinds. And we can only admire the humanity and compassion that our Torah puts forward in the face of shame, hurt, and pain. Now, while Cities of Refuge in Numbers 30 opens part 1 of this week's double Torah portion, Matot Maseh, part 2, Maseh, reads like a triptych in chapter 33. Ele Maseh v'nei Yisrael asher yatzu me'eretz Mitzrayim. These are the journeys of the children of Israel who went out of the land of Egypt, from Ramses to Sukkot, from this place to that place. Would you believe that chapter 33 lists 42 stations that the wandering Jews traveled from Egypt to the Promised Land? One modern commentator updated the story of the wandering Jew by continuing after chapter 33. Then the children of Israel went from Eastern Europe to Ellis Island. Follow me. From Brooklyn to Delray Beach. From Jersey to Queens. From Canada to LA. From Manhattan to Memphis. There's a larger backdrop for all of us who have not needed a city of refuge after committing a crime or fleeing persecution. And that larger backdrop, my friends, is the idea of the wandering Jew. We are way past Passover, when our ancestors have left slavery in Egypt, but they do not immediately fulfill the ideal of finding freedom in the Promised Land. Remember, they experience a 40-year interlude of wandering in the wilderness. And we have been wanderers ever since. Jeremy Bernstein, this modern commentator, wisely notes, while the Torah may lead you to believe that the wandering of the Jewish people was the momentary means, not the permanent end, if you look at Jewish history, you will see that the reality has been the opposite. The majority of our years as a Jewish people have been spent wandering in many diasporas. Diasporas which brought 36 Jews to Memphis, Tennessee, 7 years before the Civil War, and formed this synagogue, Tennessee's oldest, in 1854. Did you know, and my data may not be updated, but I did a little research this week, and the average American now moves 10 times during his or her lifetime. And what do we call this phenomenon? Not displacement, we call it mobility. Let's go back to the Torah itself. Of the 5 books, 3.5 take place in the desert. And no sooner do we arrive at the edge of the land of Israel, come this October at the end of Deuteronomy, instead of going on, we go back to the beginning. On Simchat Torah, we go back to the Garden of Eden, and we wander again. Rootlessness was not only true in ancient times. Bernstein suggests it also typifies our times. And he's right. Moving from place to place is now fashionable. So is having 2 residences for those who are able to swing it. This 21st American Jewish phenomenon, really American phenomenon, of wandering and having mobility is fashionable. But my friends, there's a risk involved. Having no connection to a place or community leads to the dissolution of community and the fading of Judaism in the lives of families and children. As you're aware, we stream our Shabbat services live, mainly for people shut in or in the hospital, but also for our out-of-town members of Temple and people in far-flung places watching the service right now who feel a deep sense of connection to this place, this spiritual home, when they connect not to virtual reality, but to these temple grounds, this sanctuary rooted in Memphis. Among my pastoral calls this week was with a child of Temple whose own child is undergoing surgery in another city. When I told the young mom, former high school student at Temple, now a mom, when I told her that I would be praying for her child at services, she said, "Rabbi, actually we watch you and pray with you and we love it because while we're happy in most ways living in this big city, we can't find the warm, spiritual Jewish home and sense of place Temple provided." And I suggested, and I always suggest, we do have a network of Reform synagogues similar to ours. But the point is, whenever you travel and people are in a vacation spot, they talk about their home community. And now that America's Jews have wandered and flown through 4,000 years of history, the question I want to leave you with tonight is not whether we or our children have wings to fly. The question is whether we and they have a reference for our Jewish roots, not in our minds or hearts, but in the ground beneath our feet. That is the challenge of our time and a big part of our synagogue's mission, which is to be, as the prayer book in your lap says, the doorway, literally, to a richer and more meaningful life. Whatever we may hope to achieve in extending this 4,000-year spiritual legacy in Memphis depends on what we build together. Everything Jews have learned in their wanderings the past 2,000 years is based on ideals inspired by synagogues like ours. Whether the teaching be the priority of tzedakah, giving, comes from the synagogue. Amcha, a sense of peoplehood, no matter where we're from or who we are, comes from the synagogue. Kibud av va'em, respect for parents, which again, the synagogue teaches under this big tent, many of you have come to remember parents, children, spouses, siblings, loved ones. Even the saving of a human life, pikuach nefesh, which supersedes all other Jewish deeds, is rooted in this physical place, no matter where our journey has been as a tribe. Oh, that's the best translation of this week's Torah portion. Tribes and journeys. Matot, tribes, mas'eh, journeys. So in closing, the radical idea of the Sabbath is that time itself can be holy. But Jews have made holy ground wherever we have unpacked our bags, whether that ground be this campus, a cemetery. The teachings of Judaism upon which the bedrock of Judaism rests require a place through all our wanderings. So in honoring tradition and embracing modernity, there are places which ground us, and whether those places are the land of Israel or Temple Israel, a home to call our own, I would argue is a great antidote to the rootlessness of our time. Amen.